Hi there and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be looking at the fourth studio album by Wolf Alice, which is called The Clearing. Now I recently heard their single The Sofa and I really liked it actually. It stood out to me. It had a kind of a similarity to Elbow with the nice warm rich sort of string arrangement, and it just kind of caught my attention, and I thought, do you know what, I'll have a little listen to the whole album, and I thought I'd just give a little summary here for you now and just my thoughts. Now I haven't heard the albums prior to this. I'm very much new to the band. I don't know a huge amount about them, so I'm really just going by my first impressions of the album that I've heard. So it's one thing I would like to say just from the get-go in terms of who this album is for. I would say that this is definitely for somebody who appreciates sophisticated songwriting, who can appreciate real musicians who know how to play their instruments, who know how to write and produce music, and who do things that are familiar yet original. Because obviously, you know, a lot of musicians and bands, you know, we pull, don't we? We pull influences from lots of different places, and it's up to us as creative individuals to take those familiar sort of blueprints and turn it into something special and unique and distinctive. And I think the band actually have really achieved that. There's something very warm and inviting to their music and their sound, but a very distinctive sound it has too. So the album starts off with the track Thorns. Now this has a really kind of melancholic, warm and mellow vibe to it, and there's really nice string arrangements. Now the strings are used quite extensively on this album in different ways, and I think the difference between sort of bands that maybe just use rock instruments like drums, bass, guitar and vocals are sort of somewhat limited, but once you start adding synths and sound design and orchestral arrangements, I think it just gives you so much more scope, and it's very much prevalent on this album that they've got a real kind of scope for lots of different textures and sound design, and the production throughout is superb. And this has a really powerful vocal delivery. I mean, Ellie Rosell has a phenomenal voice, and she's clearly very talented, and her voice really carries through and shines throughout the album. The second track, Bloom Baby Bloom, is a really nice kind of antidote to the first track, which just kind of eases you in because it has a very infectious piano and bass riff, really strong groove. It reminds me a bit of Steve Reich, the kind of minimalist composer, this kind of repetitive sort of rhythmic figure that's going on, but it has a very funky sound to it. It's very sort of, it's got that kind of punchy attitude to it, and a little bit kind of Kate Bush in the vocals, I found, although the music isn't really like Kate Bush. The vocals here just reminded me a little bit of her style. The third track, Just Two Girls, I hope they don't mind me saying this, but at the beginning it reminded me a little bit of the sound of like the theme tune to a 70s sitcom, and also with the name of the title of the song, Just Two Girls, I could just sort of imagine this sort of 70s spin-off sitcom type thing going on, and then obviously, you know, it gets a lot more kind of traditional song after that. Again, very strong 70s vibes. I think the sound world has that 70s vibe, but I think vocally and lyrically it's a lot more kind of the time. It's quite biting and satirical in places, and yeah, it's very contemporary in terms of its language and themes, but the sound world is very much that kind of warm 70s vibe, and to be honest, that's a pretty good combination, I would say. Track 4, Leaning Against the Wall. This has a little bit more of a folk sound to it, and I really feel like her voice sounded like Katie Melua. If you listen to the track, I can really imagine this being sung by Katie Melua. It's a little bit more traditional in terms of the song structure and the chords. Really nice, close and intimate production as well. Everything is very forward in the mix. It feels like you're right there. It feels like she's right next to your ear as she's singing, so that's great. Later on in the track it turns a little bit more dreamy, and there's some really nice vocal harmonies again, and this is another feature of the album, is that it's absolutely jam-packed with vocal harmonies, and not a lot of modern music really does that now. I think a lot of modern stuff is very over processed, bland and generic, but here there's some, you know, really good musicality on show. The next track, Passenger Seat, is more conventional pop rock song. It's got a really good hook to it. You know, absolutely fine as a track, really good. Perhaps not the strongest track on the album, but one that serves well, you know, around that midpoint on the album. Then we come to Play It Out. Now, this one is probably the highlight for me on the album. It's got this kind of beautiful piano-led feel to it. It's in like a waltz feel, and it almost feels a bit like a lullaby. It's very, very poignant. Lyrically, it's very deep and introspective, and it's beautifully sung, wonderfully arranged. It's got some amazing vocal kind of chants, these kind of ethereal vocal parts towards the end that are really, really sublime. And I think this just makes the band stand out for me in terms of having something special, having a quality to them that is really, really special and unique. And I think it's a fantastic track. It's a bit of a tearjerker, but it is a phenomenal song, and definitely the highlight for me. There is one other song that I will also highlight as well when we get to it. Next up is Bread, Butter, Tea, Sugar. Now this is obviously after the previous song, which is very sad, melancholy song. We needed something a little bit kind of more upbeat, and they've gone straight into this rocking swing groove, this kind of 6/8 sort of feel, which really chugs along. And it kind of reminded me in places a little bit of ELO or Queen, just that kind of chugging, fast-paced energy to it, with a really, really great chorus. Really good guitar solo actually in there as well towards the end. Always nice to have some solos in where possible, and I think it sounded really, really great. After that, we move on to Safe in the World. This is more drums, guitar and bass driven, so it's a bit more going back to more traditional roots in terms of the actual instruments that are used. Again, it's got strong 70s vibes. What was quite nice though on this is that there was more prominent male vocal harmonies. Obviously, Ellie's voice is the main draw on this album, but occasionally you do get the male voices coming in as well, which I think actually does add and complement her voice really well, and we get to hear that quite a bit in this song. Then we've got Midnight Song, which is a gentle, ethereal, vocal focused song supported by strings. Now this feels almost chamber-like, the way the strings are played. Instead of them being very symphonic, it's a lot more sort of reduced down. We get to hear a lot more of the lower strings, the sort of the basses and the cellos, and the vocal parts are a little bit more elaborate, and it just gives it a slightly more focused chamber music feel, and I think it's very, very effective indeed. Finally, we come to the penultimate song, which is White Horses. Now, this is my second highlight of the album. I think it has really amazing riffs, very, very punchy groove. And actually, what I really liked is the male vocals, because obviously most of the album has been dominated by the female vocals. And we've had occasional harmonies and things, but this starts with the male vocals in this kind of repetitive, rhythmic pattern. And it's really effective. It really kind of just gives you a little bit of variation and a little bit of contrast. And I think it's really, really strong. The chorus is very, very, very strong, memorable hook. And yeah, again, like Play It Out, I think that is another highlight on the album for sure. And then the final track is The Sofa, which obviously is the first song that I'd ever heard from the band, and it kind of drew me in and inspired me to have a little listen further. And as I've said, I've talked about the track in one of my other videos, which I'll link to on this one. What I liked about it was that it had a very, very sort of immediate, engaging hook. The chorus was very strong. I liked how it was mostly just hinged on two chords, which gave it a very sort of simplistic feel, which allowed the message and the melody to kind of shine through. And I also liked the fact that it had these wonderful string arrangements, which reminded me of Elbow. And so that was what immediately caught my attention. So overall, I'm really, really very impressed with the album. I think it's very good. It's encouraged me to listen to some of their other albums as well. So please do leave in the comments if there's anything you would suggest for me to listen to next, or any other songs. But I think it's a really triumphant album. It shows that there are brilliant musicians out there still writing sophisticated, clever songs. We're living in an age of AI. We're living in an age of generic, bland pop, and it's hard, isn't it, to find the little diamonds sometimes. And I think Wolf Alice is a little diamond. in the rough of our kind of AI driven music, and for that I commend them and I applaud them, and I think you should check out the album too, and let me know in the comments what you think about it as well, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Take care.